In the dimly lit hotel room, my voice trembled as he embraced me once more. The touch of his fingertips tracing my skin made my 6-7-year-old body tremble like a young girl's. It had been 50 years since I reunited with Kenichi Sato, my first love, at our high school reunion. As I gazed into his kind eyes, unchanged by time, and felt his arms around me, a long-forgotten joy of being a woman slowly awakened within me. "Mariko, you're beautiful," his hot breath whispered in my ear, and with those words, my last shred of reason melted away. There was no lie in his eyes as he called my body, marked by wrinkles and the sag of age, beautiful. As his fingertips slid toward my chest, I whispered, "I'm sorry," to my husband in my heart, yet I closed my eyes and surrendered. This secret affair began with a message after the reunion. Before you hear the rest of this story, please pause the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the like button. This will make it easier for recommended videos to appear automatically for you. Now, please listen to the confession of love chosen by my 6-7-year-old self. My name is Mariko Takeda. I'm a former elementary school teacher, now 67 years old. I live with my husband, Makoto Takeda, in a residential neighborhood in Tokyo. My days begin at 6 a.m., making breakfast and a packed lunch for my husband, then sending him off with a "have a good day." I then spend the entire day without speaking to anyone. My only outings were a weekly yoga class and a bi-monthly tea ceremony. Our children had grown up and moved out, only visiting occasionally. It was an ordinary, uneventful life. My husband, now 70, still worked as an accountant. He'd come home late, and upon returning, he'd just watch television or scroll through his phone. Our relationship had become one where we simply shared the same space and time, with little real conversation. We once loved each other, raised 2 children, and walked together through much of life. But somewhere along the way, the word love stopped being used between us, leaving only the framework of husband and wife. Into this monotonous routine came a sudden invitation to a high school reunion, our 50th anniversary reunion. At first, I didn't intend to go. I thought, what's the point now? And lacked the courage to expose myself, looking so different from 50 years ago. But then, among the names listed in the accompanying alumni roster, I found a familiar one. Kenichi Sato. His was the name of the boy I had secretly harbored feelings for in high school. Maybe I should go. A small ripple began to stir in my heart from that day on. On the day of the reunion, I went to the salon for the first time in ages and pulled out a long-forgotten dress. I splurged on some lipstick, looked in the mirror, and told myself, just for today. Entering the venue, I saw my classmates, all quite aged. Their hair was streaked with gray, their faces lined with wrinkles, their bodies rounded. But when our eyes met, the youthful faces from 50 years ago would suddenly reappear. "Mari-chan! Mari-chan!" Hearing my old nickname, a mix of nostalgia and embarrassment welled up within me. As I caught up with old friends, reminiscing about our school days, I suddenly felt a presence. Turning around, there he was. Kenichi Sato. We had served together on the Cultural Festival Committee in high school. Though now he had a calm demeanor, back then, he was a passionate literature enthusiast. I had secretly been in love with him, but in the end, I graduated without ever confessing my feelings. "Takeda-san." "No, Mari-chan." He stood before me, smiling. His hair was completely white, his wrinkles deeper, yet his eyes held a hint of his younger self, and his voice was as kind as ever. He possessed an aura of vitality that made it hard to believe he was also 67. "Kenichi. It's been a long time, hasn't it? 50 years?" I managed to say, feeling nervous but speaking naturally. I realized that, just like in the past, I struggled to speak eloquently in front of him. "How have you been? I heard you became a doctor." "Ah, yes. I have my own practice now." "And you, Mari-chan?" "I was an elementary school teacher. I'm retired now." Our conversation continued naturally, and before I knew it, we were alone in the hotel bar. The plan had been for the entire class to go to a second party, but somehow it was just the 2 of us. "You haven't changed since then. You still have such kind eyes," he said, sipping his drink. I felt my heart quicken at his words. "What are you saying?" I'm full of wrinkles. No, it's not that. That kindness in your eyes, it hasn't changed. His earnest gaze left me speechless. I felt a sensation I hadn't felt in 30 years awakening within my body. Actually, I liked you in high school, he confessed suddenly, making my hand tremble as I held my glass. Really? I couldn't say it, but I always thought about you. But I was so busy with studies, and I lacked confidence. His words made me smile slightly. I actually liked you too, Kenichi. After 50 years, our feelings were finally revealed. We laughed, both surprised, yet equally delighted. At our age, we said, but by the time we left the bar, we were completely at ease with each other. I took a taxi to his hotel. As we said our goodbyes, he hesitantly asked for my contact information. I'd be happy if we could meet again, he said. I felt there was more than just polite formality in those words. On my way home, my heart felt like it had returned to 50 years ago, fluttering with excitement. When I arrived home, my husband was already asleep. I sat on the living room sofa, replaying the events of the reunion, reuniting with Kenichi, his confession, and my own feelings. What is this? I wondered. At 67, this feeling of my heart pounding, a forgotten female self, was quietly awakening within me. But at the same time, guilt welled up. My marriage had lasted almost 40 years. Even if the love had faded, we had built a precious family together. I stood before the mirror, looking at my reflection. My eyes were etched with wrinkles, my cheeks sagged, a face far removed from youth. Yet he had told me I hadn't changed. A long-forgotten emotion spread slowly through my chest. Perhaps it was the joy of being seen as a woman again. My days with my husband were peaceful, and I had no complaints. Yet, the question, is this all there is to life? Sometimes whispered in the depths of my heart. Even before anything had happened, I blamed myself for having such thoughts. Still, I picked up my phone, checking the messaging app where we had exchanged contact info. What am I doing? I told myself. Yet I placed my phone by my pillow and fell asleep. The next morning, after making breakfast and a packed lunch for my husband and sending him off as usual, I checked my phone. There was a message from Kenichi. Yesterday was fun. I was happy we could talk about 50 years of memories. My heart fluttered again at his simple message. After a moment of hesitation, I replied, I had fun too. Over the next few days, we exchanged messages occasionally. We talked about high school memories and our individual lives. Slowly, a special atmosphere began to develop between us. One evening, my husband called, as usual, saying he would be home late because of a dinner engagement. After eating dinner alone and watching television idly, a message arrived from Kenichi. Can we meet tonight? My heart leaped at those words. Can we meet tonight? My hand trembled slightly as I stared at my phone screen. A week had passed since the reunion, and Kenichi and I had continued messaging, but this direct invitation was the first of its kind. Should I reply? Should I ignore it? A conflict began in my head. I'll be waiting. An additional message arrived, and my indecision grew even stronger. I was 67 now. I had lived most of my life, and the time remaining was limited. A new love at this age? Could such a thing be possible? But deep down, I knew the answer. I wanted to see him. With trembling fingers, I replied, Where? And an immediate response came. At the hotel bar in Marunouchi. The specific location and time in the message made it feel real. Caught between the rational voice saying I shouldn't go and the emotional pull saying I wanted to, I opened my closet. Telling my husband I was just meeting a friend, I dressed up for the first time in a while and headed to the appointed place. On the train, I pondered the meaning of what I was doing. An affair? Or simply reconnecting with an old friend? When I entered the hotel bar, I saw Kenichi at a window table. Dressed in a suit, he looked even more refined than he had at the reunion earlier in the day. You came, a look of relief washed over his face. He, too, must have been feeling unsure. Yes. But is this really okay? I sat down at the table and spoke my honest feelings. I was thinking the same thing, he said, but I couldn't resist the urge to see you. Sipping our drinks, we talked about our lives. He had divorced 20 years ago and was now living alone. He said that despite his busy days as a doctor, there was something unfulfilled in his heart. If I had confessed to you 50 years ago, my life might have been different, he said. His words made me think, too. I knew what ifs were meaningless, yet his words resonated deeply. Our conversation flowed, and before we knew it, it was closing time. By the time we left the bar, the outside was enveloped in the darkness of night. I'd like to talk a little longer, he said. My heart quickened again at his words. Actually, I've got a room. If you'd like, why don't we talk there a bit more? I was momentarily speechless at his suggestion. The meaning was clear. And my answer too was clear. Let's go. In the elevator, we stood in silence. In the quiet, where only our breathing could be heard, his hand took mine. It was simply warm. The moment the room door opened, my last resistance in my heart dissolved. Mariko-san, his voice trembled slightly as he spoke my name. I felt the same mix of tension and anticipation. Kenichi-san. We called each other's names, and I naturally leaned into his arms. The moment his lips touched mine, a long-forgotten sensation surged through my entire body. He told my 6-7-year-old body that it was beautiful. Amidst a blend of embarrassment and joy, I closed my eyes. With a tenderness and passion that defied age, he embraced my body. As each button of my blouse was unfastened, there was a momentary hesitation. The thought, to let him see this body, crossed my mind, but enveloped in his sincerity, I resolved to surrender everything. As his hand traced my skin, I was surprised to hear my own voice whisper, "More." Long dormant sensations awakened one after another, and a joy deeper than I had known in my youth coursed through my entire being. "Your skin, it's so warm," his whisper trembled in my ear. And with those words alone, my body responded. Our breathing quickened, and soon we became one. It wasn't the passionate love of youth, but a deep affection that only adults who had lived long lives could share, a gentle yet profound joy that I hadn't known when I was young. "I'm truly happy you came," he whispered in my ear, and tears spilled from my eyes. They were tears of joy, and also tears with a hint of guilt. But this moment was mine. In my long life, didn't I also have the right to have time just for myself? I couldn't help but feel that way. In his arms, I felt loved as a woman for the first time in decades. It was more than just physical pleasure. It felt like a communion of souls. 2 weeks passed since that night. Nothing in my daily life had changed, yet everything seemed different. The light of the sun felt more vivid, and I put more effort into my cooking. Kenichi and I exchanged messages occasionally, and we met once a week under the pretext of meeting a friend. On Wednesday afternoons, when his clinic was closed, we shared time in quiet cafes, and sometimes in a hotel. It wasn't that I felt no guilt. The immorality of deceiving my husband was always in a corner of my heart. But more than that, I was surprised by how vibrant I felt as a woman. Standing in front of the mirror, it was the same face, yet it looked different. My eyes sparkled, and my cheeks seemed to have a faint blush. I was learning anew the wonder of being needed by someone and needing someone. There's a different way to love when you're older, isn't there? I sometimes thought. Love in youth was passionate, sometimes blind. But our current relationship was a gentle, deep connection that respected each other's lives. One Wednesday afternoon, as we faced each other in a cafe, he said, "Mariko-san, I love you." I gasped at his words. "But we're all ready. Don't worry about age. Precisely because we don't know how much time we have left, I want to be with you." My heart trembled at his earnest gaze. "Kenichi-san, I love you too." As I spoke those words, it felt as though something that had been held deep in my heart for a long time overflowed. Perhaps it was the suppressed emotions of being a woman. Yet, reality wasn't simple. I knew I couldn't abandon everything. My life with my husband, my family relationships, the judgment of those around me. "What should I do?" I asked. He quietly replied, "I want you to choose the path that makes you happy. Whatever form it takes, I will respect your decision." His kindness drew my heart even deeper towards him. At the same time, I felt that the time was approaching when I would have to make a decision. Could I continue my life with my husband while also maintaining a relationship with Kenichi? And would that truly be the happiness I desired? My phone rang in my bag. It was my husband. "I'll be home late tonight." His usual familiar message read. A thought crossed my mind. Perhaps he, too, was living days unfulfilled. Just like me. Even after returning home from my meeting with Kenichi, that thought lingered. In the quiet house, I began to think deeply about my life. Days passed as I re-examined what true happiness meant to me at this age. "Mariko, I have something to tell you," my husband said one evening after dinner, his expression unusually serious. My heart almost stopped for a moment. The fear of, "Has he found out?" flashed through my mind. "You've changed recently." "No, in a good way, you seem livelier." My husband's words left me speechless. "Actually," my husband began, stumbling over his words a bit. He, too, had been harboring something he couldn't tell me. He had become close to a female colleague at his accounting firm and had gone out to dinner with her a few times, though he insisted there had been no physical relationship. Still, I felt guilty about that relationship. "And when you started going to the salon recently and going out more, I wondered if you might have noticed." I felt a myriad of emotions at my husband's confession. I didn't tell him about my relationship with Kenichi, but I felt this might be a turning point. "When did we become like this?" I asked quietly. My husband looked down, pondering. "I guess we just became partners in life, without realizing it." I nodded at his words. After a long silence, we talked honestly for the first time. We discussed our complaints, our loneliness, and above all, the question of whether it was okay to continue as we were. "Mariko, what do you want to do from now on?" My husband's question prompted an honest answer from me. "Honestly, I don't know. But I feel like we're not truly living if we stay as we are now." My husband quietly nodded. "Let's take some time to think. For both of us to find what we truly want." That night, for the first time in a long while, we slept in the same bed. We didn't embrace, but I felt a sense of security I had long forgotten. The next day, when I told Kenichi about it, he looked a little surprised. "You told him the truth?" "No, I didn't tell him about you. But we spoke honestly about our relationship as a couple for the first time." He pondered for a moment, then quietly said, "I hope the path you choose is the best one for you, Mariko-san." His words made me think deeply. What did I truly want? What did I want to cherish in the rest of my life? And then, I arrived at a decision. "Kenichi-san, I have something to talk to you about." A week after my decision, we were facing each other in our usual cafe. I began to speak quietly, but with a firm voice. I talked with my husband. We were honest about our feelings. Kenichi listened intently, looking a little tense. "We've decided to live separately. Not divorce, but a separation to respect each other's time and space." Kenichi's expression widened in surprise. "Mariko-san, I've spent a long time with my husband, and we have family ties. But perhaps as a couple, we were already over." Kenichi wore a complex expression at my decision. "But that means?" "It means I can be a little freer in my relationship with you." Even as I said this, I was careful. "But Kenichi-san, I'm still in the process of exploring my own life. It doesn't mean I'll be with you." He was silent for a while, then gently smiled. "I understand. I respect your decision, and if you'll allow me to be by your side, that alone makes me happy." I breathed a sigh of relief at his understanding. Several months passed, and I began living alone in a small apartment. I met my husband once a month, continuing our relationship as a family. It was ironic that putting some distance between us actually led to more conversations. My relationship with Kenichi also continued. Sometimes we shared dinner at his place, sometimes we went to the movies, and sometimes I fell asleep in his arms. We hadn't promised marriage, but it was a relationship where we cherished each other. "Are you happy, Mariko-san?" he asked one day. Looking at his profile illuminated by the setting sun through the window, I replied, "Yes. Very much. I've only now learned the joy of being able to choose my own life. I realized that 67 was not the end of life, but a new beginning. I had gained the courage to live honestly according to my heart, without worrying about societal norms or the opinions of others. Thank you, Kenichi-san. If it hadn't been for your message, I would surely have continued to live a dormant life. He smiled gently and took my hand. I feel the same way. Meeting you has brought color back into my life. Outside the window, the sun slowly set. But in my heart, a new dawn was beginning. Was it a mistake? I sometimes wonder. Deceiving my husband, a relationship that began as an affair. Yet, I don't regret this choice. At this late stage of my life, I made a decision to live authentically, not for anyone else, but for myself. The definition of happiness differs for each person, and it also changes with age. When I was young, stability and family were my happiness. But now, I realize that authenticity and fulfillment are what truly matter. Perhaps people are meant to continue growing until the very end, letting go of preconceptions and discovering a new self. I learned this at 67. You too, no matter your age, try to live honestly with your heart. The words "it's too late" only serve to bind yourself. Living fully in the present moment might be the shortest path to true happiness. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story resonated with you even a little, please subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Your support is the driving force behind new stories. See you in the next reading.